to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna make a project that is so fast. It is so fast, and it's using a notion that is brand new to me, but it is so cool. I guess it's a notion, it's an accessory, it's a bag part, it's something you're gonna wanna buy a lot of, trust me. Today, we're gonna make the accordion wallet. Look how stinking cute this is. And this comes to us from Luxe Hardware and More. You guys, okay, it's adorable. Let's get a close-up. Here we go. So you see it's got this beautiful little flap. You have a lot of options. I'm using a magnetic snap because it's quick, it's easy, it's something I have. You could use a plastic snap. You could use a magnetic snap that has the prongs. You could use a little fancy magnetic snap that like goes on the bottom. On the back, it's just a basic back. You could definitely put like a little ID window right here if you wanted to. I just put my bag tag, but this is the coolest part of the whole thing. Like this is, look at the inside of this. Look at this. It's like an accordion. You know, accordion. It's an accordion wallet, and you didn't build this. You don't have to build this. So you buy this insert separately, and then you just sew it in there. And so this one has like a ripstop lining. The accordion insert I got from Soulful Therapy. I believe you can get it from Luxe Hardware and More or Soulful Therapy. Lots of color options. I'll show you a few of them in just a moment. Very easy to work with. Very, very fun to sew with, and something that I think you can get really creative with. So you can see this one here, this is a vinyl version, and so it has raw edges. So if you wanted to edge coat that, you could. Honestly, I wouldn't. I mean, if I was making a bunch of these, especially as gifts, I think this looks great without the edge coating. But if you wanted to have a very polished, finished look, definitely edge coat this. However, we're not gonna go over this one today, because all the videos I've seen are going over the vinyl version, so I was like, we're not doing that. Everybody else is doing it, so I'm not doing it. Today, we're gonna go over a quilt cotton version. I know. We're gonna go over a quilt cotton version with no raw edges, and it's a little bit different than how the pattern writer explains to do it in her video, but it works. And so, you know, at the end of the day, whatever works is going to be the best option. So you can see this is a beautiful quilt cotton, and you can see the edges. There are no raw edges whatsoever. I am, again, using that ripstop lining on the inside. You could use some sort of a credit card protector, you know, like the RFID, I forgot what it's called, but that material that like prevents people from being able to scan your credit card through the wallet. I don't work with that, but if you wanted to, you could definitely use that. And so once again, I have the insert, different color. The other big thing I want to talk about today, besides that amazing insert, is this stabilizer that was sent to me. Now this is a 0.6 millimeter thick self-adhesive bonded leather for reinforcement. Look at this stuff. It's kind of like a corrugated, almost like an MDF board, kind of like a cardboardy feel, but it's going to have a lot of sturdiness to it and a lot of durability to it. I use that on both of these as stabilizer. I definitely think you gotta use that if you're using quilt cotton. You could use Decovil Heavy, you could use Peltex. It has to be a firm stabilizer though. The only way you're gonna get this great structure is with a good stabilizer. You cannot just use quilt cotton here. I will tell you, I'm not using any woven interfacing on my quilt cotton version, okay? It's just the exterior material, the lining material, the insert, the stabilizer, the snap. That's it. That's all I'm using. Oh, and then my bag tag. So thank you so much to both Luxe Hardware and More and Soulful Therapy for sending over some of these inserts, for sending over the pattern, for letting me know about all this, for sending over the stabilizer. This is a really fun bunch of materials and items, and I just want to show you. I keep looking over here, but look, they sent like a bunch of colors. They have so many of these accordion insert colors, and I want to show you when you open this up. One side opens like an accordion, and the other side does not. It's completely put together, right? And then you've got these little flaps. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to sew all this in place. It's so easy, and it's one of those things that once you use it once in this project, you're probably going to get some ideas and other ways to use it, which I'm very excited about. So I'm holding off using these 4 ones. I'm either gonna make more of these as gifts for teachers, or I'm gonna try to think of something else too. I don't know. But like I said, going into the holidays, these would be great teacher gifts. These would be great gifts for students, kids, anybody really, because you can make one of these very quickly, and then you can insert some gift cards into it, and you're done. You're done. You made something handmade. You gave them something useful that they can spend, you know, to buy stuff, and it's really, really cool. It's just really cool. Cool. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. I will say that this pattern does not have written instructions. There are a lot of templates. So this is just one style. I'm using the same style throughout all of these today, but there are so many different styles of flaps. You can even create your own. So you're gonna get really creative with this. But again, if you wanna keep it very, very simple, you can keep it simple and quick. If you want to make it more fancy, you can definitely do that too. All right, guys, let's get started. Okay, so for this wallet, you need just a very, very few things. I'm going to do a fabric version. Like I said, it's a little bit different than how I saw them do it on their YouTube video, but it worked out really well for me. So it's nice and easy. So what I'm going to use for the exterior is just a piece of quilt cotton. This is cotton woven material. This is not heavyweight material. It's very lightweight, and there's no interfacing on it. I'm not using any woven interfacing. I want to keep my seams really light. And then for the lining side, I have this piece of ripstop. Now the ripstop comes from Social Therapy. It's really great material, nice and sturdy. And this is actually going to provide quite a bit of structure to the wallet. But for the main structure of the wallet, you're going to want some firmer stabilizer. Now this was sent to me from Luxe Hardware and More, and it is adhesive bonded leather. So it has a sticky backing. I find it's not as sticky as we need it to be to stay permanently while we're turning everything, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But this could also be Peltex. This could be Decovil Heavy, just something nice and firm. Could be Craftex. I think I haven't worked with that before. But there's lots of interfacing options out there. You just want something that has really good structure, because this is going to be what keeps the wallet from being all loosey-goosey. And then the big thing for the wallet is this amazing accordion insert. Now, can you see this? On the bottom here, it's like all glued together. But then on the top, it fans out like this. Now, we didn't make this or anything. This was purchased. This is available in a couple different shops. I think Luxe Hardware and More sells it, as well as Social Therapy. So I'll have links down below. And these are really, really cool. I mean, this is a fun pattern to start out with this, but this is one of those items where you can buy a few of them, and then you can kind of come up with your own designs. I think that would be really cool. So I have one of those. And then I'm going to be using a magnetic snap. This is a rivet magnetic snap, so I don't have to poke any prongs or anything. These are just really easy to work with, and I can use them on my cam snap rivet press. So to cut these pieces out for the exterior and the lining, I'm using the accordion wallet for non-raw edge, and this is pattern piece N. And then for the stabilizer, I'm using pattern piece E. So there's lots of different shapes in the pattern, lots of different printables. You just want to make sure that you have the fabric version and the non-fabric version. You print those both out for the same shape, because we're going to use the non-fabric version for the stabilizer, and then obviously the raw edge version for our material. Okay, so here's pretty much all the other stuff I'm going to be using today. I have all of this over here because of the snap that I'm using. If you're using a plastic snap or you're using a metal snap that has the prongs, you don't need all this extra equipment. But if you have a big rivet press like this, I would suggest you get the die set that goes with the metal snaps, because it's very quick and easy. So this is my cam snap press, and then I have the die set that goes with those magnetic snaps and a hole punch to go with that. I have a whole video going over this, so if you're interested in that, you can go check it out. There's also like a whole bundle on the Cam Snaps website. That's the OklaRoots bundle with lots of stuff at a discounted price. So that's all linked down below. For my top thread, I'm going to be using a Tex 45 weight thread. This is a variegated thread. You're going to see this mostly on the lining, and you don't have to use such a thick thread if you're using quilt cotton. So if you're using vinyl or something, yeah, I would use a thicker thread. But since we're using quilt cotton today, if you just want to use a regular lightweight thread, you can definitely do that. For the bobbin, I have a Gutermann polyester thread. Now this is the thread you're going to see the most on the outside of the little wallet, so make sure you think about the color of that. I like a light gray color because I feel like it blends in with everything, and so it's not that noticeable if my stitches are a little all over the place. But if you want it to stand out, make sure you change out your bobbin. And the needle I'm using for this thread is going to be a Microtex 8012 needle. I have a stiletto and some snips at my sewing machine at all times, a lighter to clean things up, an air erasing marker and a silver ink pen, a 1" by 6" ruler, my bag tag, a 1/4 inch double-sided tape, a hand sewing needle. I would not recommend this one exactly. I just can't find the ones I usually use. We actually sell some hand sewing needles in the shop and like a cute little egg. I just don't know where mine is. So I'm going to use this, but this is optional. The hand sewing needle is completely optional. You don't have to do anything with this if you don't want to. I'm just going to show you what I do with it. And then a healthy supply of plastic clips. All right, so the first thing I want to do is attach my bag tag. Now I'm using a sew-on bag tag, And this is going to end up getting sewn to the lining, so I have to attach it now before I do anything else. So I just marked the midpoint on the bottom straight edge of my exterior material, and I put some double-sided tape on the back of my bag tag. I'm gonna measure 5 inches up from this bottom edge and centered, and that's where I'm gonna place my tag. So once I have that taped in place, I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to carefully top stitch around all 4 edges of this tag at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm gonna leave my threads long and I'm gonna pull them through the back and tie them off. I'll show you how I do that. All right, so once you have this top stitched on, you see how I have my top threads really long, and if I flip this over, my bobbin threads are also really long, and that's important. Don't use an automatic thread cutter or anything. So what you can do is you can take your bobbin thread and just lightly tug on it, and you'll see a little loop of your top thread on the back of your material. You'll use a stiletto or something pointy, and just pull on that loop to pull the top stitching thread to the back. So after you do this for both of them, you should have all 4 threads on the back side, on the wrong side of your material now. And if you look at the front, it's very clean, and if you started and stopped in the same spot, you can't even tell where you started and stopped your stitching. So it's a really clean look without having to back stitch or anything. And then with all these threads on the back, just divide them up 2 and 2 and do 3 nice tight knots. And that will just secure this in place. And once you have all those tied, you can just cut that with your scissors, and there you go, tag is done. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to look at my lining panel, and I'm gonna mark 3/8 of an inch in from all of these outer edges. Okay, so you can see those little lines I made. So now I'm gonna take my stabilizer, and my stabilizer has a sticky backing, and it's sticky enough to stay in place for a bit, but it's not gonna stay there for long to turn it out. But that's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is my stabilizer cut and where it's gonna go. So I'm going to stick this to the lining side. And if you have like Decovil Heavy, you can fuse it. If you have Peltex, you can use like some temporary spray adhesive or even just tape on the back of it. Because the point of this is we're gonna sew these 2 panels together based off of where our stabilizer is, and that's gonna help us later when we put the stabilizer back in. So I have my exterior and I have my lining, and my stabilizer is attached to the back of my lining. I'm gonna take both of these panels and I'm gonna lay them right sides together and line up all the edges. And then I'll just grab my clips and clip along all outer edges. All right, now grab a ruler and a marking tool. And on one of the long sides here, let's mark a 4-inch opening. So just about 4 inches. There we go. That's gonna make putting everything back together later easier. Now, like I said, my stabilizer is here temporarily. So when we sew this, we're going to not sew between those 2 marks. So I'll remove the clip. Don't sew that opening right there. We're gonna start at one end and we're gonna backstitch. And we're gonna sew around the entire unit until we get to the other end. Now, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance is what we're shooting for, but don't sew on the stabilizer. So instead of focusing on the seam allowance, focus on where your needle is next to the stabilizer. You want your needle to just go right outside of the stabilizer. Make sure the stabilizer does not move, it stays where it is. But just make sure when you're sewing, your needle, it doesn't touch it. The needle doesn't touch the stabilizer, it doesn't go over the stabilizer, it goes just outside of it. Now, not like 1/8 of an inch or anything, just barely outside the stabilizer. Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the stabilizer off, turn this out, and then shove the stabilizer back inside. And as long as we sew it like that, the stabilizer is gonna fit perfectly. But if you sew on top of the stabilizer, you're gonna have an issue. If it's too big, you're gonna have an issue. So like I said, just keep your needle right just outside the stabilizer, go nice and slow, and sew around all the edges, but making sure you leave that opening unsewn and you backstitch at both those marks. Okay, once you have that sewn, grab some scissors and let's trim the seam allowance down in half, only where there's stitches. So where that opening is right there on the side, don't trim that down. So I'm just gonna go around all the edges, trimming the seam allowance in half, and this will help reduce bulk when we turn this out. If your stabilizer is still hanging on, you can leave it there for now, or you can take it off. Either way, it's fine. We're gonna put it back in a moment. Now, when it comes to stabilizers, whether it's a fusible or if it just has an adhesive on the back, I like to adhere it to the lining side. A lot of times, if you adhere a stabilizer to quilt cotton, it creates kind of a ripply effect, and To avoid that, you just make sure the non-sticky or non-fusible side is against the exterior side. So in this case, my sticky side is going to go against the lining side, not the exterior side. Okay, and then once you have that done, carefully, if you like, you can kind of just snip at these corners, but you gotta be careful with quilt cotton because it is a woven material, and so it can unweave around these corners, so you don't wanna cut too close to those corners. So now, take your unit and flip it so it's right side out, and then grab your turning tool of choice and poke out those corners of your wallet so everything is nice and neat. If you want to take this to the iron real quick and flatten it out with the iron, you can definitely do that. Just be very gentle with all this. I'm not going to use an iron because my stabilizer is actually going to flatten it for me. So now grab your stabilizer cut, and like I said, if you have a sticky side, I would suggest putting it against the lining side. If it's not fusible or sticky, then just slide it in. So you're going to slide it in through the hole. You probably will have to bend it a bit, and that's okay. We can flatten this out later if it gets creases in it. So you can see I just kind of like smushed it all in there, and now I'm just going to gently push it so that it goes in all the corners, and I just start flattening it out. It takes a little bit of time to work with it, but you should be able to fit it in and get it exactly the way you want it. And if you find that your stabilizer cut is just like too big, you can always take it out and shave off a little bit off the top. I would say just shave off a little bit off the flat bottom edge and just kind of work on that before shaving off the top edge. Once you have that done, tuck in your lining on the opening side and then just fold it in and wrap your exterior around the stabilizer so it comes over to the lining side, and fold that in as well. So you should be able to close up that hole in the lining, and it should look nice and neat. This should not be a difficult thing to do here. And then grab some double-sided tape and cut off a small piece and just put it inside this opening on the side of the exterior material. So I'm just lifting the lining out of the way and adding the tape to the exterior fold over, and then remove the paper from that, and then just fold the lining in using that tape to get it all nice and neat. Okay, so this should be your unit now. You have the lining side, you have the exterior side, and it's nice and firm. And you can see whenever we wrap it all around, it's gonna look like this. It's gonna be so cute. So now let's add this little accordion cutie patootie. So what you wanna do first is let's mark some lines. On the bottom straight edge here on the lining side, I used my air erasing marker and I marked a horizontal line that's 1/2 inch up from the bottom edge. And then just to help me with my next mark, I'm gonna grab my little accordion wallet here. I'm gonna take one of the flaps, pull it away from the accordion part, and I'm gonna line up the bottom of that flap, any side, just one of the short edges of the flap with that line. You could also just measure this if you'd like. And I'm just gonna mark where the top of that is. So this is just a placement mark. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, pulling away one of the flaps, lining it up on that 1/2 inch line, and marking the top of it, just so I know where this is going to be laying. One side will be laying. Okay, and then using those 2 marks that I just made, I measured 1 1/4 inch above that and drew a horizontal line. Okay, so those are the markings we need. We need this 1/2 inch line down here, and then we need this higher up line right there. So now you're gonna grab your accordion wallet, and you see the top opens like this, the bottom does not open, and we're gonna pull the flaps away from the center. Now grab some double-sided tape for this, and when you have the flaps pulled open like this and it's nice and flat, grab your double-sided tape and add it right along the outer edge of those flaps. So it's on the side, it's like the outside. So if you have the flaps like this and they kind of come together, not that side, the outside of them. Be like the wrong side. So do this for all 4 flaps, just adding some tape right along the edge. Okay, so here is our accordion. Like I said, it opens on the top. So with it open side up, we're going to lay it down. So the open side of the accordion is facing the bottom of the wallet on the lining side. And with this left bottom flap, so we have the top flap and we have the bottom flap. With the left bottom flap, remove the paper from your double-sided tape, line up this, it's gonna be the top edge, but right now it's the bottom, it looks like the bottom, with that 1/2 inch mark down there. So just like this. So if we look at this, if we were to open this up, the accordion would open like that, see? Now grab some clips, even though you have tape, use clips as well, and clip that edge in place. Now pull this accordion insert up and over towards the clips so that you can pull out the other bottom flap here, remove the paper from the tape, line up that bottom edge with the 1/2 inch mark, there you go, and tape it along the side, and then just use some clips to clip in place. All right, doing good. Okay, so now this is how it should be. That's taped and clipped, and if we flip this up, the accordion opens just like this. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna flip this up. We're gonna work on the top left flap now, and you're gonna flip it down towards the lining. Now, the bottom of your wallet's going to come up. That's okay. This is not a flat project. This is a 3-dimensional project. So take the paper off that tape, pull this up. The bottom edge of this flap is gonna line up with that top horizontal line, just like that. And as you do this, the whole wallet's gonna start curving in on itself. It's not gonna be flat anymore. It's not supposed to, you're fine. There we go. So now move the accordion towards the left, pull that remaining flap out, take the paper off the tape, line up the bottom edge of the flap with that marked line, and tape it along the edge of the wallet. And then add some clips. All right, this is how it looks. This is like your finished wallet. This is what you should be seeing right now. Now, we have to sew this, okay? We're gonna be sewing over the stabilizer, we're gonna be sewing the accordion wallet into place, and we're gonna have to sew it with the lining side up. So like I said, whatever your bobbin thread is, that's what you're gonna see on the exterior. So if you need to change that out, change it out now. I suggest using a zipper foot for this, and we're gonna sew this lining side up, top stitch around all the edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I like to start right at the top of this accordion flap. So right on the flap at the top, that's where I like to start and stop my stitches, and I'm gonna show you why after we're done. I'm only gonna do 1 row of top stitching at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you'd like to do a second row at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, go for it. That will add more security to this. It will help it, you know, not rip as it's being used. But my thread is nice and tough, so I am going to leave it at that. And as I'm sewing, I'm going to be moving this wallet out of the way. It's never gonna lay flat, but that doesn't mean you can't sew it. You just have to be slow and careful about moving everything out of the way as you sew the wallet. This step is also gonna close that hole in the lining. Okay, so after you have this top stitched on, you should really see this coming together now. If it was a little loosey-goosey before, it should start to really start feeling more sturdy. Okay, so you can see I left my threads nice and long, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull on my top threads, on the threads that are on the lining side, because I wanna pull the threads that are on the back to the lining side. I'm just gonna use a stiletto here to pull the bobbin threads to the lining side. So once you have all 4 threads on the lining side, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to thread 1 thread at a time on the needle. It's a little bit tricky with these tiny needles, which is why I said I don't suggest the needles I'm using, because the eye on them is so tiny. So once you have one of your threads on the needle, I like to just push it through the side of this accordion flap. So remember I said I started and stopped on the flap? I'm gonna push it right into one of those holes, but I'm just pushing it from the outside of the flap to the inside of the flap. So what I'm trying to do is pretty much just pull all my threads into the inside of this pocket right here, so you don't see the little knot in the finished result. So I'm gonna do this with all 4 threads, just threading 1 at a time on the needle, pushing it from the outside of the flap to the inside. All right, once all 4 threads are inside like that, now just pull the accordion part away, divvy up the threads 2 and 2, and then just do a triple knot with all these threads, getting the knot as close as you can to that flap of the accordion. And this will help hide that knot and give you a clean start and stop point with your threads. And if you did 2 rows of top stitching, you can still do this with that. And then you can just trim those tails. And if it's close to the top like mine is, where you can kind of see the little pigtails sticking out, you can pull your material away, take a lighter, and very gently just melt down the pigtails, not the knot. There we go. Okay, so now looking at the bottom of your material, find where the bottom of the flap is, and then just pinch right along where that bottom of your accordion flap is on one side, and then find it on the other side, do the same thing. And now we're just creasing the stabilizer now so that we'll have a nice shape. So then just press right along there. So you see now, instead of it kind of rounded like this side is, it's nice and curved. Now do the same thing on the other bottom flap. So find the other flap that's closer towards the top. And at the bottom of that flap, just pinch it. Do the same thing on the other side. And just give it a good pinch along the entire edge. And now you should have a nice rectangular bottom. I mean, it's that easy. You just pinch it. There you go. So now you can fold the top down. We can figure out where we want to pinch it on the top. I like to start about 1/2 of an inch above this angle here. So where it angles from going straight into the flat part, I go about 1/2 of an inch below that. And that's where I do my pinch. Now I'm just eyeballing this, but you could measure if you want. So I'm going to pinch it like that, and then I'm going to bring it over, and then using that fold, I'll figure out where I want to fold it on the back. So I'm just going to look at the side, and right around there is where I want to go. So then I'll just fold it along that edge. I know it doesn't have to be too precise. It's all kind of willy-nilly. There we go. So now, when I put it all together, you see it's nice and nice little rectangle. How cute is that? Okay, so last thing I have to do is my snap. So for that, I'm gonna use the middle of the flap, and I'm gonna measure up 1/2 of an inch. So I made a mark at that 1/2 of an inch midpoint, and I'm gonna use my hole punch, and I'm just gonna punch that out. Make sure I have a hole going all the way through. And now I'm gonna pull this down. Now you can just use that hole and straighten this out and just kind of figure out how you want it to be in the end. So you can just do that. And then with that hole, again, just there, you can insert your marking tool. And now you have placement for the other end of the snap. Now again, this only works if you're using a snap that can be installed with a rivet press or some sort of a press. If you were doing a prong snap, this would have to be done differently. I'm just gonna punch out that hole, and that's only through the exterior and lining and stabilizer, not through the accordion stuff. Now I'm gonna grab my hardware, and I'm going to take the male end of the snap, and I'm gonna install that through the lining side of the flap, flip it to the exterior side, and add a rivet cap that goes with the snaps, just like that. The female snap is going to go on the exterior through the hole on the bottom there, and the cap for this will go in the lining, just like that. Now I'm going to grab my die set, and it's the bottom die that looks like the female snap, and I insert that in the bottom. The top die goes with the rivet backing, and I'm just going to take my male snap and lay it in male snap down and press in place. Now I'm going to take the bottom die out, change it out with the bottom die that kind of looks like the male end of a snap, and then I'm going to take the female end of this snap and lay it snap side down, rivet side facing up, and just put it in my rivet press and press it down. And there we go. Now I can close this and snap it into place. So you can see you can do it with raw edge material like vinyl, and you can edge coat this or just leave it, or you can use quill cotton, and then you don't have to worry about any of the raw edges. It just kind of comes together really neatly like this. It's a really fun project that comes together quickly, and you can have a lot of fun with these little accordion inserts. And I think going into the holidays, if you put some gift cards in there, this would be a great gift. All right, so here's the one we just got done making. What do you guys think? Isn't that so quick and easy? And like I said, the method is really quick. I mean, it's just a basic sew them right sides together, flip them right side out, top stitch the accordion in place, you're done. Bada bing, bada boom. I love it. I love the stabilizer. I love the accordion wallet. I think this is such a fun thing you can make a lot of, and you could gift to all kinds of friends and family and teachers and coworkers and something like that. I mean, and if you really want to get into it, you can get your embroidery machine out. You can embroider people's names onto this. If they have a favorite sports team, maybe they're on a sports team, you can embroider their sports team, like their baseball team, you know, things like that. I don't know. Yeah, the options are endless. So I hope you guys love making this as much as I do, because it's very addicting, and it's definitely one of those projects where if you're like, I just want to get in the sewing machine for a minute, the holidays are coming up, I just need a break from everything, but I can't commit to, you know, a long, multiple day long bag project or something. This is your go-to. Pop in, have a little bit of soulful therapy, you know, hang out, relax for a bit, make something beautiful, and then head back out. You got this. Holidays are coming. You got this. I hope you enjoyed sewing with me today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a great rest of the week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.